Welcome, everybody. We're so excited. Welcome to this episode of the Sicilian Queens. We have the wonderful Maestro, modern-day artist, Sicilian, Australian-born Sicilian, just like us. We want to share him and tell you everything that we know about him, and he's going to share his story with you, and his name is the beautiful Eolo-Paolo Bottaro. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. Welcome. Welcome. Everybody, take a seat, grab a glass of wine, sit down and enjoy this episode. We've all got our glasses of wine.
Yeah.
Enjoy this episode. So, Eolo, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Thank you for having me, guys. I just have to say this is my first Zoom meeting or whatever it is, or recording.
Yeah.
I hope I've created a nice ambience behind me here.
Wow. I think take a closer look.
Yeah.
Wow.
A practicing artist, graduate from the VCA for over 20 years now, really. Sort of graduated in the mid-90s. Obviously, you know, in the early days from graduating, had many sort of jobs to to keep the artistic sort of flair going. Yeah. So painting at night and so forth. And then slowly, eventually got into a bit more of a professional sort of situation, where I was represented by galleries and started to exhibit, and just slowly, very slowly, sort of built up a career, I guess, within the painting sort of aspect. So because I also do sculpture, if we go into it, and that sort of came a lot later. Actually, it only really came, I'd say, within the past 6 years, amazingly. So yeah.
So VCA, that tells me you're Australian born, not Italian born or Sicilian born.
Yeah, right. A lot of
like
people
us.
think that. Yeah, that's right. Like you guys. So yeah, we're Aussie born.
We're Aussies.
Sicilian born. I was born in Melbourne, and so grew up in the suburbs, and basically did all my schooling here. The only time I would go to, say, the homeland or whatever, were those small occasions, very limited occasions, obviously due to budget and family and so forth. When we were younger, probably once when I was 3. And then I had a bit of an inkling to suss out the situation and meet cousins who are my age that we always heard of. We actually snail mailed each other a fair bit as well. Mm-hmm. When I graduated, I worked a year and saved a bit of money and said, time to kind of see where you're from. And it was
Eolo, you said you grew up in the Melbourne suburbs. What suburb? What, northern, west, south? What part of Melbourne?
I grew up in good old Preston.
You're a Prestonian. What school did you? Maybe you went to the same school. What school did you go to?
Bloody all-boys school, which was a bad choice of my parents.
Was it Marist Brothers?
Yes, it was Marist Brothers, but it was Redding College. So Marist Brothers turned into Redding, which then turned into Samaritan, which now I have no idea, because I think it's had a pretty bad history.
I think it's Parade. Yeah, I'm not too sure. But the interesting thing is I went to Preston Tech, and the Marist Brothers, you didn't have year 11 and year 12, and I think you came across to our school, a lot of the boys, because we used to get excited when the boys would come over from the Catholic college.
Yeah.
So you were born here, and then you went to. What made you? What was it? What was that magical pull that aligned you to steer you to go back to Sicily? I'm interested in that. It was family, or was it something intuitively? What was that?
Look, I think it's definitely a combination of things. Like also as an artist, obviously the Call of Europe is great because everything we learn in a textbook is things that we wish to stand in front of to really savour. But, you know, obviously also on a level of my mother's mother remained in Sicily and her two brothers, so and then their extended families and so forth. So that had something to do with it. But I can talk about when I was a little more mature and I did my first real trip there where I ventured by myself sort of thing.
So
Please do so, but can you tell us...
Where were your parents from?
Yeah, my dad's from Siracusa and comes from Comiso, provincia di Ragusa. So the Ragusa
from the south.
Yeah.
From the south, okay.
Yeah, so they're on that coast belt there. I call it the Baroque belt, you know, all the way, you know, that you go from Siracusa to Ragusa, you've got in between Noto and all those other...
Fabulous. How often do you go back? Do you go back quite frequently?
I'm now later in my life, I'm trying to go back once a year. And I'm trying to also incorporate work into that. Like I understood that when I went back when I was younger, it was always a bit more of a holiday vibe. And it was very short-lived. So just when you started to get an inkling of where you were from, you went back to Australia and you got reprogrammed immediately to be, you know, the big cars and the, you know, just the Aussie way of life. You know, you go from Sicily to Preston. There's a big cultural shift and change, even though it's full.
You're describing my life, Sicily to Preston. I had no idea you grew up in Preston. That is incredible. The link to Darabin, I had no idea.
Yeah, Darabin. Yeah, I know. You know, from Preston all the way. You got as far as Northcote, maybe Alphington. You sort of stayed in that hub, sort of thing. But let me just explain. The one time I took a bus, and I think I landed or caught a train, and it stopped in Catania, and I was like, "What is this strange land?" You know. And I remember getting.
How old were you? How old?
I think at the time I was 18, 19.
Okay.
I'm now 46, so it's a you know, fair bit back.
É o bichirido.
I don't think so. No longer.
Yes.
Puchot.
O pichotto.
Yeah. So basically, on that bus trip, something. It was, you know, it's one of those those emotional moments where I actually, for that instance, driving across to Cormsall was that stretch of road, which I know very well now. I actually got very emotional, and probably because I was ready to do it, but, you know, to the point of shedding a tear. And I was like, why the hell am I crying? I don't even know this land. You know, I don't know this land. You know, I don't, well, what? And obviously we drive that psychologically, I believe, but it was strong enough to make me realise, oh, okay. Because not only that, the stories that I heard here within Australia with my parents, they didn't want to really know about Sicily, you know what I mean? Australia gave it.
They were done. They were done,
and they were more Australian than even myself, you know what I mean? Like they'd already had a life here before my life was evolving, and they had become the Australians, which is amazing and remains to be amazing. But I had a very intense inkling later on that, and there's something that somebody said to me, I don't know if it was some vecchio or something like that, but he said, or they said, and it could have been my grandmother, the problem with the people that left Sicily is when they left with the radici. And without the radici, nothing grows. And I thought, shit, I'm probably the roots. And so I felt, you know, an obligation, not an obligation, I felt a necessity, and it's also for myself, that now, if it was possible, I have to give back. because it's what has created who I am and my name.
What's blossomed is you.
I have this saying that how do you know who you are if you don't know the people that have come before you? And I find that because they are an element of who we are. So for me, I can only resonate with what you've said by traveling back to Sicily and understanding the hardships, the struggles, the love for food, for passion for family, and the culture that makes me understand who I am as an individual. Because I think for me, that was the missing element. Forget about all the other, the driver and the passion for other things. But the element that was missing for me was understanding where my past and my heritage is from, because it's part of my character and my values and my beliefs. And that's what shapes me as an individual. So I don't know if you resonate with that, but that's what I resonated with when I went back to Sicily. As soon as my feet touched the ground, I felt the strength, the knowledge, the passion, the drive for the people before me that had come from there. And I don't know if you felt it that way, but that's certainly my explanation and my feeling when I landed in Sicily. And each time I go there or I talk about her, she's just like this missing link in a jigsaw puzzle for me.
Yeah. And she shouldn't be the missing link, because she's, once you've found her, then you have to make her part of your DNA, and you have to connect her to Australia, because that's the beauty of Australia.
She is for me. Yeah.
So, sorry, what's that, Lina? She is for me.
Now, you speak about painting. Let's talk about the mediums that you use, and how early did you discover them in your life? Because I can see oil. So, and then you said you went over to sculpturing. So in terms of your oil, your mediums, let's talk about how you discovered what suited you back in your early years.
Look, obviously when you begin at art school, you start with the basics, and you could almost call basics being oil paint at art school. And even that was quite complex to begin with. I again, because of my travels, I was quite fortunate, and this happened in Sicily as well, that I used to visit the universities in the towns that I'd go to, just to make comparisons to what we were taught in Australia. And it was there that I got invited to a class, because they were all so warm and, he's an artist from Australia, get him into the class, sort of thing. And, you feel like a little bit of a celeb. And so I went in, and there were these, 15, 14-year-old kids, and they were mucking around with sand and lime, and they were actually learning the art of fresco, which I had already graduated from art school, and I didn't know what fresco was. I'd stood in front of the Sistine Chapel like all of us do, and that, but technically I knew it was some weird form of painting, but it was ancient, whatever. But the technical details of it, I just did not understand. And then I see these kids, 13, 14, as part of their class, they're mixing the sabbia and the sand, they've got the pigments, and they were just casually doing these little fresco panels. And I came back to Australia after that, and I dedicated a great deal of my time and energy to becoming a fresco painter within Australia. And
Can I interrupt for a minute? What is fresco painting? Can you tell us what it is? Yeah.
Fresco, basically, look, the best examples of frescoes, if we look at, the Assisi Chapel of Giotto, or if we look at Raphael's paintings in the Vatican, or Michelangelo is the pinnacle, the creation of man. Fresco is an application that is used on solid walls, and it's basically, in really simple terms, wet lime and sand mixture, several layers, and you paint raw pigments that are lime resistant into that surface. It crystallizes and it becomes insoluble in water, so it becomes integral to the wall. So when we look at the Capella Sistina and stuff like that, that's fresco. Technically, it goes way beyond that simple explanation, but in a nutshell, that is a method, and it's 3,000 probably more years old. So you even get frescoes in Greece.
There's a scientific method to that actual application. I had no idea. I just thought it was oil painting on a wall. But the way you described it and the way it crystallizes, there's a scientific process to reach to that particular point that I was not aware of. So I'm sure there's other people out there that I had no clue.
No. Well, we know fresco as fresco dining or stuff. You know.
Of course we do. I love that.
Eolo, can I ask you a question? So it seems like just by listening to the life of your life of just by becoming an artist, and slowly, it feels like it's slowly unfolded. It's been a slow process of a journey, and you've felt that pulling, which the pulling has actually created you into, taking you into that realm. Like you went there and you saw these 12, 13-year-olds who were doing fresco painting, and you thought, I think I want to do that, you know, I want to learn of that. If it was not a pulling, you would not have wanted to do it, you know. It's something that's there already inside of you. Is there any artists in your family?
Yeah, that's what I want to know too.
No, look, it depends on how you categorise the artist. So I could definitely say yes, there are, because, you know, I grew up in a family, and you might know this, Lina, in a family of taxidermists. So the shop in Thornbury, there was a shop.
I remember that.
Yeah. So there's artistic merit unto itself within that, even sculptural, that I'm starting to understand. My nonna too used to tell me when she was in the collegio, you know, half of them went to the collegio, you know, she had this artistic flair where she would do or try and do these decorative pieces and so forth, and then the nuns would, you know, sort of stop her, and she seemed to understand more than anybody the artistic sort of passage to some degree. Even though at the time when you're young and you're in Australia and you're doing that, it's like, this one doesn't want to work and he's possibly going to be a bludger. In the end, work harder than anybody. You know what I mean? It's like...
Can I take you back to when you were young, because this is what this episode's about, and your journey to getting to the other projects. What did you... Who inspired you, and what was your vision? What did your vision look like for you, for your journey of life to, you know, in a process? Did you have a set agenda of what you wanted to achieve, or was it something that was flowing? Or do you get inspired by nature, or do you get inspired intuitively?
Oh, again, Lina, I think it's a combination of all those things and many other things, and being able to manage them. One thing I never did was I never let myself be influenced by a contemporary source or teachers. I admired them, but I never let them influence the passage that I needed to take, because, you know, I believe if I did something like that, then I would lose the Sicilianality and so forth, because I really held on to those aspects, because, you know, like in times they can possibly be looked at as not fitting into some social demographic, artistic sort of idea. Whereas I dug and this could be the testadura, you know what I mean? I dug my claws in deeper, but I backed myself with technical skill. Like I never did it in a poetic sort of artistic way. I went very technical, almost, you know, like a chef or something like that. You know,
I could see that in your bronze in the video that I saw today. That your attention to detail is so microscopic. It's anal. Yes, it's anal. I was going to say anal. It's so microscopic. I couldn't believe it. It's a great video, and I think we should put it up on the website, on the Facebook page, because it's tremendous. just to see what it takes to actually from the clay to the end product and that particular journey.
That particular video there, created by Claudio, doesn't even take us into the painting of the sculpture. It just shows us the finished terracotta. So then the painting goes through another journey of completion, but that's in that full documentary. But yeah, you're right. To me, the process was really important. And again, when I do travel back to Europe or Sicily and so forth, that quality of artigiano that is sadly, it's lost. It's there, and even if we say it's lost, there are kids that all of a sudden they do something. They get a bit of clay and they do something, and you go, "That's in your DNA." Like, how do you know what I mean? They haven't been led to model that piece of clay, but they intuitively do something. And that's what I tried to do when I was in Polizzi Generosa and I got the kids and I said, you're all going to make a little statue, let it out, just let it out sort of thing, let it. And so it's...
Where is can you describe to us where Polizzi Generosa is, please?
Carmela, Polizzi is vicino Palermo. It's about an hour...
It's in the
south? An hour south?
It's about an hour and a half out of Palermo, and it's 1,000 meters high. It's up in the...
It's in the Madonnina.
It's in the Madonnina Mountains.
It's above Cefalù, probably about 70 k's.
So it's between Cefalù and Palermo, so more towards the middle there.
It's still in Palermo region.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, up in the hills. It's an amazing. It's the Sicily that you don't experience if you just go to Sicily for the beach. No. Then all of a sudden you realise, oh my God, there's a whole other Sicily that my sense, because I lived there for 8 months creating the statue, is that because they're a bit more insular within that space or within those towns, their love for their culture goes even beyond the people on the beach side, from what I experienced, around my mum's area and so forth.
Yeah. So it's called, people call it Polizzi Generosa because it actually is named after the people, because they're very generous people. All the Polizianas, they are generose. They're very generose. It's a different realm to each region that you go to. These people are like somewhere out of a film that of being able to stay in time, involved in their own kind of
film of nostalgia. So it's basically nostalgic. Like so time's frozen.
We could just talk about Polizzi in the next episode.
Yes, we'll do that.
Talk.
Oh yeah. So
sure. We'll just finish this off about the art, but the next episode we're going to dive into the Polizzi project, what made you do that Polizzi project, and talk about how you and I met through the Polizzi and how Polizzi just transformed my view too of what Sicily is about. But I noticed something that you've got. Have you got a Sicilian coppola on?
Yeah, un capeddu, un capedduzzo. Un capedduzzo c'è il viso.
A coppola. There's several names. Napoli, it's different. Palermo's different. Everyone's got a different name for it. Yeah, this is one designed by me.
Oh, that's beautiful. Oh my God, you designed it. So do you sell them?
No, look, I had, when I realised if I was going to make Sicily a part of my life, I needed to create commerce between the two. It couldn't be just a holiday thing, to make it real.
Yeah.
So look, again, driven by my curiosity and my nose, against those chance meetings like the 14-year-olds doing the fresco, I met a guy in Palermo who was very small manufacturing. And initially I just met him because I just wanted to buy one for my zio because he wore the coppola. Ultasco, they call them too.
Udasco, yeah, Udasco. Ma non è... Piggiamo Udasco, Lina, piggiamo Udasco.
Anyhow, when I went to buy this one, I saw a pile of these coppola, and they're all dusty, and you could see there was not really much commerce going on for this character. And as I left, I stopped because initially when I went into his shop, he was a bit suspect on me.
We're nearly about to run out of time, so we've got to just...
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
No,
yeah.
Start on to the next one.
I'll cut it short? Yeah. Anyway, basically, to cut it short, this character, I said, if I'm to buy 500 coppole, obviously they're not going to cost me as much as one. And I said, because I'd like to try and sell them within Australia. And then within 2 years, I had to tell you the truth, within about 2 months, I had an up and running business and was selling to every store in Melbourne. And actually very, very decent orders.
What year was that?
Geez, that's a good one, Carmela. That's it's all a blur now, even though it's no longer. It was when I first went to Sicily as an adult, which was 7 years ago. What year would that make it?
So
2013, 2012, 2013.
14, 15. The business operated.
Fantastic. Do they have the Trinacria embroidered on them?
No. I didn't go too intense with. I have the Trinacria. Oh, sorry, yeah. I have on the inside. I don't. Think
on the inside, yeah.
Yeah, I have the sticker with the Trinacria, and it's made in Sicily for Melbourne.
Oh, lovely. Well done. Well done.
Wonderful. Do you
have them for sale?
No, now I don't have them for sale because the business just came to a halt because it was actually difficult when I was there, and I needed people on the ground here, and just the managerial part of it was a bit difficult. And in the end, I got so busy with my artistic life that if you don't dedicate the time to that sort of thing, you how can you manage it? And I tried to get other people, but because I can sell the hat, I can walk in anywhere and sell hats, and they that's because you believe in the story and you are the story. And it was true in the end. So I sold to City Hatters, I sold to Henry Bucks. It just goes on. The list goes on. It was. And they were all
and the exchange rate doesn't help either, does it? With the Italian, we used to be the lira and the Italian dollar was on par. Now it's the euro, and that's really digs in. Yeah. Although
the production in Sicily compared to here, you can make a hat. You know what I mean?
I know completely. Well, maybe that's something we should look for when we go out to Sicily, Carmela. And
yeah, definitely. We'll just end this episode, and then we're going to talk about the Polizzi project.
No worries. Time's up. That's good. That was a lovely. Thank you, guys. Lovely introduction and
sharing your story with us. And I hope that people understand a little bit about you and follow you we can follow you on, where can we follow you?
You can follow, I guess, on social media. Facebook and Instagram. Just a standard sort of thing. My name is the page or whatever, and so that's an easy way to just.
Can we buy any of your art?
Sorry?
Can we buy any of your artwork?
Oh, can you buy it? Yeah, you definitely can buy it, but that's normally done through when I have an exhibition or when I have an event. Okay. So I make you. Yeah, and I publicise that on social media and so forth. So
we can talk about that in the later episodes.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Lina. Thank you, Eolo.
Buonasera. Ciao.
Buonasera a tutti, all our friends.
Buona fortuna.
Amici da lontano e vicino, quelli che sono in Sicilia, quelli che sono in Australia. Grazie tanto a sentire a tutti noi. Un saluto a tutti. Baci.
A tutti chi ti sentono. Ciao.
Ciao.